He's never fought us. Not us united.
I can so see that. That's it. Welcome to Comics League Indie Wednesday. I'm Jared, and I'm here with Geladaa Comics. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, dude. So I normally have a couple of questions I normally ask at all my first-time guests. So what got you into comics?
What got me into comics? Actually, I was very seriously into books as a kid, into literature. I used to read a lot. I used to read many books per week. I don't quite remember exactly what it was that made me switch to comic books, but I understood them initially as books plus pictures. That's the base thing, and I was a huge fan of Spawn.
Oh, yes.
I
Good
was
choice.
I was so much into Spawn. I love that sort of dark stuff. So I remember Spawn being the comic I really religiously collected as a kid. Yeah.
That's awesome. What'd you think of the Spawn movie?
I mean, I have to say that back in the day when it came out, it seemed to me like the coolest thing ever. Of course, time has not been particularly kind. At the same with that movie, at the same time, it has sort of a charm. I think nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't rewatched it in quite some time, but I think that it's a pretty sincere movie at the very least. I mean, you can tell the creator cares about it, if nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the CGI is kind of dated, but they did try and recreate shots from the comics, and I appreciate that, even if the CGI is a little wonky at times.
The Spawn product that really, I mean, at least in my book, hit it out of the park was the animated series.
Oh,
the
yeah.
HBO
I
series.
still have to watch that.
It's so dark. It's so dark. It's like really mean. Really a very very adult product, and it's really interesting. Yeah.
So were you more of on the indie guy, or did you also like the mainstream Marvel, DC stuff like that?
I have a pretty strange actually story. I told you about the comic books and Spawn. Actually, now that I think about it, another big influence, but I understood it differently. Where European comics, Franco-Belgian comics. I went to a bilingual, French Spanish school growing up. For some reason, my parents enrolled me into that as a kid. So I was exposed to a lot of French comic books, and the French and I mean the Europeans in general have a very different idea of what comic books should be. A much sort of larger idea. There's a much greater variety of stories. It's not only of course here in the United States it's not only superheroes, but it's mostly superheroes. Over there it's there's a wider variety of genres. I think I did read X-Men and Batman and all of that stuff growing up. I have to say it has never been the most important thing for me as far as comic books.
That's cool.
go.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about with like French comics being like a different, like they approach comics differently, because when I was in Paris for 2 weeks because I was visiting a family member, I picked up a few books there, and they had like some barely any superheroes. There's mostly just like stuff on the Iraq War, Afghanistan. It's like stuff that deals with like real world topics, and I find that to be very fascinating. Also, there's no like comics code or like regulations, so there's straight up nudity, intense violence. So it's like essentially watching a war movie, but in comic book form.
To me, the thing that matters most, I think, is that there's obviously some USA comic books that have very impressive art, but a lot of superhero stuff is very repetitive visually, I find, because it's just like these tense figures like contorted in space. And what you see in European comics is that there's a lot I feel that there's a bigger focus on being formally interested in the medium as something that is, serious, like beyond just drawing detailed backgrounds. I think they go at it much more as being, similar to cinema, where, yeah, there you have a greater variety of visual variety, I feel. But I don't want to imply that I think that European comic books are, as a norm, better than USA comic books. I mean, there's great stuff everywhere, of course.
It really depends on your preference, but yeah, I mean, that is true that they do get repetitive, and that can be also attributed to the thing about European comics generally avoiding superhero stuff is because of superhero stuff. You have to deal with the fan expectations. One of the things I've talked about a lot is that fans like to see the same thing over and over and over again, which is why it gets repetitive like that. They're like, it has to be this way, and I'm like, why? You can't do anything new here. You can't let the medium grow. With European comics or manga or anything like that, they really, since they're not using since they're using wholly original IP and stuff that hasn't been around for so long, there's none of those expectations.
Yeah, what you mentioned about it being wholly original. Most of manga and European comics are completely author driven, like they are the creation of the author or authors, and they do exactly what they want to do, and they're often very idiosyncratic, and they don't have to deal with it being comic number 500, I don't know, of Spider-Man, of this or that. So there's that going for them. But I'm 100% of author guy. I want to be an author. I am an author. I draw and I write and I control everything about comic books. To me, that's one of the main appeal of the genre, not the genre, the medium, is that you get to do everything yourself and control everything yourself. So
it definitely has the most freedom, particularly in the indie scene, because you don't have to worry about aligning to any particular continuity or any particular preconceived notions of a character. It's just, what do you want to do? Do it. Just go ahead and execute on an idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and the thing about it, that's why I think yes, it all comes down to personal preference, but I think that's an advantage that particularly manga and European comics has over America, is because there's more freedom there, because the fans won't freak out on social media if you do things new and different, which can be attributed to mainly why American comics are struggling. But I mean, I guess it just depends really on what you're going for, because if you're going for superheroes, really, if an IP is around for long enough, it will 100% get repetitive after a while. It's just it's, I guess, the curse of longevity.
I mean, what you mentioned about the people complaining nowadays, I feel that we're in a sort of a terrifying dark age right now, where it's just so poor, it's just so punished by the social situation that it can. I mean, it should be labeled. It can still be labeled culture, but yeah, it's a really perverse, really limited kind of culture. So I want to go with my comic books. I want to go as far as possible. I want to do things that are really very strange, that belong to me completely. And so I'm completely out of sync with the current vibe, I would say. Yeah.
Which is a good idea, dude, because it's a lot of stuff nowadays, particularly from Marvel and DC, gets really beating you over the head with whatever the political agenda is at the time. And I feel like the best way to succeed is just avoiding all that. It's just avoiding what the current cultural trend is, because really that's a way to really stand out, because everyone's going to go that way. But if you go the opposite, there you go. Everyone's like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there should be a lot of ambiguity to culture. You should be, as an author, asking sincere questions, questions you really don't know the answer to. You should feel that, I think, you shouldn't feel that there's even any sort of message. That's one of part of the base definition of art, is that it's an exploration of something, not supposed to relay a specific point of view necessarily. And so
Yeah, because what we're really supposed to do is just tell you the issue, let's say, and then let you come up to like your own like conclusions about the issue. And that's where Marvel and DC are struggling, because they're focusing too much on how to think. But one of the other things that you mentioned earlier that I thought was very interesting is like with European comics and manga, it's very author driven. I think that's another advantage, because the characters are more consistent, because it's just one creative team, the founding creative team throughout the entire run of the book. So it's just, you don't have like, for a certain amount of issues, the character acts one way. Then with the next group of issues, it's like he acts the complete opposite.
yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of things that pop up. Of course, nobody believes that Spider-Man has really had a continuous story. It's just different explorations of the character by different people, and then they have to somehow fit together into something. But yeah, it's not. I mean, it has some sort of appeal, I guess. It's a specific kind of thing. It's just not necessarily what I want to do. I want to do, really the stuff that I feel is completely mine, and the stuff that I feel is completely surprising and unshackled. I want to for people to be able to expect anything out of my books, and I do. I mean, I do science fiction, and I do sort of science fiction fantasy, and I do horror.
Ooh, wow.
I want to sort of inject a sense of, the sense of intensity found in, and what I mean by horror is not even, horror tropes. I don't intend to do specifically horror tropes. I just intend to do things that have the intensity and the capacity to go places, where,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
So kind of like edgy, in other words.
I mean, the thing is that people say edgy for things that, and it will be, you will be able to expect something edgy to be a certain way. There's an expectation of edginess. And that's the sort of thing that I don't want to be constrained by. I don't want my comics to be specifically all the time aiming to shock, for example, because that also can become, repetitive in its own way. So I just want my comics to be unshackled by any kind of external pattern, and that actually includes also, the commercial side of things. And it's maybe a little bit foolish of me, but I want to do things that are completely, artistic, that are ruled only by the considerations of where I feel that the story or the dream wants to go, instead of being, oh, is this what kind of demographic is this aimed at, etc., etc. So yeah.
That's cool. So on that note, tell us about your comic series and everything like that.
Sure. Yeah, I have 3 comic books at the moment available at my website. That's Geladaa with double A at the end .com.
Mhm.
I'm currently working on a specific series that I brought to Kickstarter successfully some time ago,
Hey,
la-
congrats.
last year. Yeah, it's a series called In Hell.
Mhm.
And I describe it as being sort of Breakfast Club. Do you know that movie, The
Yeah, I
Breakfast Club?
do. I do.
Yes, it's a Breakfast Club meets Beetlejuice.
Oh,
So
nice.
like that sort of it's a group of very archetypical characters. You have a
Mhm.
blonde, you have a blonde cheerleader, you have the typical rebel without a cause, you have a nerd, you
Mhm.
have different archetypes, and
Okay.
they are sort of reborn into this surreal dimension,
Mhm.
which they come to. They basically told by a booming voice in the sky is meant to be hell.
Mhm.
So they're in hell, and they're gonna sort of discover what the deal there is, and
Mhm.
sort of develop as in a sort of fantastical adventure over there. So that's more or less the vibe,
I
the
like
idea.
that. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean it's there's gonna be a lot of let me just share some
Sure.
more pertinent pictures about this.
Sure. It's a very original idea, and that's what you need right now. Which, hey, that it works for you. Go for it.
Sure. No, I mean, I wanted to create something that had because the two other books that I had previously created, I mean,
Mhm.
they're sort of surreal fantasies, and I'm very proud of them, very happy
Mhm.
with them. But I was trying to connect somehow with people, to give people some sort of entry point that was more
Mhm.
relatable.
Mhm. That
So I
works.
thought that having these archetypical characters, sort of as a reassuring thing for the audience
Mhm.
was an interesting idea. So yeah.
That works. That works, dude. That works. So, what you got to show?
Well, I'm as you can see, I'm sort of sharing my screen. I can you
Actually,
can
no, you're not. You
I'm
haven't.
not.
No,
I
I don't
haven't.
see anything yet. No.
Oh, I thought I was. You're right. Okay, let me.
Okay, it's all good.
Okay, click.
All right, there you go. Now I see it.
Okay. Let me then show you some stuff.
Nice, by the way. I like that background. That's nice.
Thank you. So here you have, for example, two of the main characters.
Okay.
That would be Johnny and Christine. You also have Barbie, Arthur, and Dexter and Willow. That's
Mm-hmm.
the six characters.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so they awaken into this sort of dimension. Let me show you some of that, how that looks.
Mm-hmm.
Like they awaken into this dimension, and
Mm-hmm.
they sort of have how would I call it? Like I'm gonna be naming a lot of references. For
Oh, good.
example, the Lord of the sort of a Lord of the Flies kind of
Okay. I
situation.
get makes sense. I got that. That's
Yeah,
nice.
like Garden of Eden. Like
Mm-hmm.
the paradise,
Mm-hmm.
but then with also a sense of why the fall, or why that sort of drama becomes inevitable. Like
Mm-hmm.
you feel that there's an inherent conflict between these characters as much as there is a relationship between them.
Yeah.
Like each one of them, of course, is has this sort of recognizable identity, and then they sort of have something to say to each other right away, and yeah, it becomes kind of a dramatic situation.
Cool.
But as the story evolves, I plan to go into many different things. Another big influence of the book is the Stephen King novel, the clown.
Oh, you mean
uh,
it?
It, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I am sharing my screen right
Yeah,
now.
yes, you are. I see it. I see it.
Like you can see, for example, that would be the clown character in my book.
Yeah. I'm getting a very big It vibe from that.
Yeah, yeah, he's sort of a mischievous little fellow.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they another big thing that I wanted to emphasize was that these will be proactive heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not gonna be responding to some sort of external thing. They're not trying to stop, for example, the clown from
Mm-hmm.
doing this or that evil deed. Instead, they have their own sort of objective that emerges as
Mm-hmm.
they venture forward into this strange dimension. Like, see here, for example, you see that one of the characters transforms into this um, sort of knight or
That looks
robot.
so cool. That looks so cool.
Well, I am glad. I'm glad that you think so.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of different, for example, thematic ideas. Like the character is supposed to be a Christian. He's
Okay.
and if you notice, for example, in this scene, he has been stabbed in the chest,
Yeah.
right? So he then, for some reason, revives and
Mm-hmm.
pulls out the knife from his chest.
Yeah.
So he's supposed to be king, like King Arthur,
Mm-hmm.
removing the sword from the stone, and in the
That's
process,
cool.
yeah, well, that's the idea,
Mm-hmm.
that he, in the process of removing the sort of being reborn and removing the knife, he transforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has this sort of gaping central hole in his chest.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of ideas and themes that I try to put into things like that. For example, the fact that it's revealed that he had Saint Peter's cross,
Mm-hmm.
the inverted cross. It's not
Mm-hmm.
in this case, it's not a satanic symbol, but Saint Peter, famously a martyr that one didn't think he was deserving of the same kind of death
Mm-hmm.
that Jesus Christ had. So
Mm-hmm.
he asked to be crucified upside down, right?
Nice.
So, well, anyway, just to sort of illustrate what sort of deal I want to put forward in this book, where you have a fantasy adventure, but I aim to put in a lot of mythological, thematic complexity into each one of the pictures and into the story itself as it evolves. So that would be uh, like a big part of what I'm trying to do for people, that to produce something that is worth pondering, something that is worth reading slowly and trying to digest all the symbols and all the ideas beyond just enjoying the adventure, of course.
That's a great idea because that encourages people to reread the content and not just put it down as soon as they're done.
Yeah. That's something that neither manga nor American comics have. That
Yeah.
they're typically, I mean, not always, but often made to be read very fast.
Yeah.
And I was aiming for much more of a feeling of, and all my books are this way, where you have a mystery. Like my ideal book would be, an alien artifact from some lost civilization that you're meant to, be a little bit confounded by, and something that you want to spend a lot of time studying and trying to understand what the idea behind it could be. And
Mhm.
it's not something that is immediately apparent. That's a big part of what I try to do with my work. Yeah.
That's really cool. And that again, that's the way to go, really, because comics have a reputation, I think, because of Marvel and DC, of being like very superficial and like, okay, it's just like superhero A shows up and fights supervillain B and punches them in the face. Where with this one, it's like on the surface, yeah, but but when you actually look into it, it's a little more than that.
Like here, for example, I have a scene where the sort of the jock character, where Arthur and Johnny the rebel, they fight, and but I go into this page where you have them sort of you have a vision of them as being identical, like
Hmm.
the idea is that you have they sort of project into each other, and there's a lot of ideas behind empathy.
Hmm.
Like the idea is that you recognize yourself, for example, in your enemy, and that is actually the fact that is the part that makes you maybe hate your enemy. The fact that that this person acts a little bit like a mirror to you,
Hmm.
and an unflattering mirror maybe.
Yeah.
So
That's so
yeah.
deep. That's cool. I dig that.
I think that is just, I mean, of course people can disagree, but I think that's just a fact
Hmm.
that empathy works in a negative way a lot.
Hmm.
I actually think that a lot of things like anti-Semitism and other kinds of stuff, people often say, hey, you should be empathetic, but actually a lot of problems come from the fact that people are empathetic, but
Hmm.
they feel that they have to really reject and very violently the things that the others represent for them.
Hmm.
So yeah. And anyway,
Interesting.
just
That's
trying to
cool.
produce something rich, as I said. Yeah.
I like that, and 100%. That's because there should be more projects coming out like this that sort of elevate comics beyond the like reputationally superficial like nature of the medium.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of comics already, of course, that are
Hmm.
very, very ambitious, and they're very, very complex as well. But I did want to take it a, li- a couple of steps further and try to do something, like I said, that pretty much what I'm attempting to do is to make sure that every panel acts as as a painting,
Hmm.
where I don't want to have panels where you just have an action being described.
Hmm.
I want to have a cinematic dimension, but I also want to have, the complexity of paintings, of art. You're
Hmm.
supposed to be able to stare at a painting forever, right?
Hmm.
That's why you hang it on your wall. So yeah, I'm shooting for that all the way. That's the idea.
Definitely works. Definitely works. Yeah, and by the way, the art looks fantastic. Like just looking at it
Thanks,
right
thank you.
now, it looks really, really cool and very like very different from what's out there right now. And that, hey, that's what you need to do in order to like stand out to the audience. And this works.
And I really appreciate you saying so about the art. Another thing that I make a big effort to do is to do uh, spreads.
Hmm.
Like all of my pages function as a double page spread,
Hmm.
where you have, of course, panels and you have a story, but I care deeply about it being like like I said, a big painting composed of smaller paintings.
Hmm.
So ideally, you could. I'd want people to be able to hang any one of my pages on the wall and be, happy about it.
Hmm.
That's what I'm shooting for. Yeah. So I make, of course, a big effort on the on the art side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and that works because here's the thing: that's what sells a comic, really. Yeah, the writing is, but people will are more likely to pick up a comic and enjoy it if the art is really good, and you have that first step like all down pat.
Well, I hope so. I mean, so far my backers have been, I've received some encouraging feedback from people so far, and I'm trying to make more friends and, get people, to know what I'm trying to produce here. Yeah, the visual side of things, the marketing side of things in general, I've been struggling with that, and well, making progress little by little. But like, for example, this image that I did, I I pretty much came to understand very quickly that people want to see sexy women in their
Hmm.
Kickstarter campaigns. Of course, I have nothing against sexy women, but this is sort of an example trying to fulfill expectations in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want my comics to be ambitious, but I want them to be fun as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to, most of all, maybe the core adjective that I'm chasing after is cool.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things that, for example, manga and anime have going for it. That
Yeah.
there's this sort of coolness, there's this alien, sleekness to it, and I think that's one of the that's another one of the big things that are sacrificed on the altar of political correctness and trying to push forward a message that you know uh, a message is never going to be cool. I feel that it's going to also be, you want something that misbehaves. You want something that is hard to pin down, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you think about it, art is naturally rebellious. So it's like
Yeah,
art going along with a narrative just doesn't work.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Art is meant to be rebellious. It's meant to be unruly. It's meant to be rude often. It's meant to be conflictive. It's meant to be sincere, I feel. So yeah, that's a big part of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it definitely works. And again, that's why I like interviewing indie creators because they're really going against because here's the thing, at this point Marvel and DC have become the narrative instead of going against it, which is sad. So it's refreshing to see there's still some hope for comics.
Well, I'm certainly plan to try. I'm not gonna give up anytime soon.
Yeah, that works. Just keep up the fantastic work. And in terms of the marketing, you really learn a lot of this stuff as you go along, and it's a lot of trial and error, dude. It's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, the important thing is to persevere. I feel just not to get discouraged and just persevere. Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you an example. Is because this channel used to be at like 32 subscribers, and then you just keep at it, and then more people add on, add on. As long as the audience will, whether or not that's your comic readers or my viewers, can see that you're passionate about whatever you're doing, you will grow. You will grow 100%.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it's just a matter of time.
Time, perseverance, and
Mhm.
just trying out different stuff and never giving up. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. So where can everyone back your projects and find you and such?
Yeah. I actually like I said, I have many different websites.
Mhm.
Uh, Geladaa.com
Oh yeah.
is
I'll keep
is
that.
uh,
Yeah. Mhm.
is my hub, my homepage.
Mhm.
As you can see, here are my two other comic books. Secret Reunion in Carfax Lodge is the
Mhm.
the first one I did. Um, Not Freak Squeal, the second
Mhm.
one. And you can go here and you can get a free sample of In Hell if you subscribe to my mailing list. I don't
Mhm.
spam any kind of material that you don't want. You can visit the In Hell Kickstarter as well by clicking on it.
Mhm.
There's a video that you can watch for the for the comic book, and you can buy the comic books at the shop.
Mhm.
Right now, I used to have the comic books available physically,
Mhm.
but I ran out of copies. I didn't print too many of them,
Mhm.
but right now I have them as high definition PDF
Mhm.
files.
Mhm.
I feel that a lot of people, spend so much time in their computer, and you get the perfect colors on
Yeah, that's true.
on a calibrated screen. At least, if your screen is meant to look kind of decent, you have decent contrast and everything, you will get the best version of the pictures. Of course, in the future, I plan to bring them to make them physical again. But
Mhm.
yeah, you can buy them here. And of course, I plan to bring the second chapter of In Hell pretty soon to Kickstarter. I hope later this year,
Sweet.
since it's an ongoing story. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's where people can get me. I have a lot of little links here. I have a Tumblr, I have a YouTube page. I've made some videos, analysis, and talking about my art and talking about this or that. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. But yeah, mainly my website is where people can get my stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. And all those links will be in the description below. So I think that's a good place to call this a Geladaa. You're always welcome back on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. And I'd love to be on, even if it's not specifically to peddle one of my my products. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
Anytime, dude. Stay at work, everyone, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.